Welcome back to our tutorial on culturally appropriate pedagogy. So, in the second part of this lesson, we discussed the application of the Western-based cooperative learning in the Vietnamese context. Although this concept is not unusual to the Vietnamese learners, there are differences between the authentic cooperative learning in Asian cultures and the Western-based approach in terms of leadership, trust and group identity, group harmony, the role of the teachers, limitations of school systems, and preference for cooperative learning. Normally, the Western-based cooperative learning is used when the fulfillment of a complex learning task requires the cooperation of a group of students. Therefore, a project-based or problem-based learning approach has also become one of the most popular imported teaching methods in Vietnam and in a number of other Asian countries. It can be seen clearly in our new series of curricular English textbooks that there are projects of all scales at the end of every unit. The project-based learning applied in language education focuses on, first, learners' participation in new knowledge gaining and exploration through communicative work with outside curricula. Second, learners' outcome production. And third, written or oral reports and presentations. Project-based learning in language learning is mainly implemented in the curricula for learners of above beginner level. Micro-level studies on project-based learning within language and culture programs have reported students' satisfaction with their own motivation, participation, and learning outcomes. So, what should be taken into consideration when project-based learning is applied in cultural learning? First of all, the project-based approach should focus on encouraging learners to learn the cultural contents by participating in meaningful activities in a motivating context. Secondly, in a classroom setting, learners should have chances to gain cultural knowledge as well as develop cultural awareness and understanding through reflecting upon their experiences. Thirdly, learners should actively participate in the learning process through cooperative activities. Fourthly, the project-based approach should highlight the association with the real world due to its focus on meaning-making instead of the structure and function of culture. And last but not least, the approach should emphasize the important role of the culture of learning. Similar to what happens to the Western-based cooperative learning in the Vietnamese context, the application of project-based learning in the Vietnamese classrooms of foreign languages also faces a number of challenges and requires a lot of adjustments. In reality, very few classrooms in Vietnam have succeeded in carrying out complete projects within curricula due to the shortage of time in class and the heavy workload placed on the students. More importantly, as the majority of our current language teachers were not taught with project-based learning when they were young, their instruction doesn't seem to be clear enough to the students. When the reason why the students should do a project, the methods of doing it, and the expected outcomes of the project are unclear, the students cannot be motivated in project-based learning. Furthermore, the power distance between teachers and students, influenced by Confucian heritage, also causes ineffective teacher-student communication about learning difficulties. And finally, as the proportion of projects in the national curricula is insignificant, assessment methods for project implementation do not seem to take shape nor prove efficient. Without being officially and appropriately assessed, our students cannot see why they should take part in project-based learning. Not to mention that Vietnam is not a multilingual country. The students do not have rich intercultural experiences to associate with learning activities. The problem is that even though there are challenges, project-based learning is beneficial and has become a compulsory part of the curriculum. So, in order to solve the problem of limited time in class, one way for the Vietnamese teachers to both complete the requisite contents of the lessons and help their students to benefit from the textbook projects is to reorder the components sections in the books. For example, in the new textbook series, the usual order of contents of a unit can be warm up, listen and read with comprehension tasks, language with vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, then the 4 macro skills, then communication and culture, and finally, project. So if the objectives and integrated skills of the project are similar to those of one of the other sections, we can combine and carry out the project with a previous section, rather than leaving it until the end of a unit. Or with rather simple projects, they can function as warm-up activities. To illustrate, let us consider the project of Unit 1 in the new English textbook for grade 12. The topic of the unit is life stories of well-known or special people around the world. The project, which is situated at the end of the unit, asks students to build a profile for their famous idols. From my perspective, this project can function as a warm-up of the lesson. Of course, when reordered, this project should be modified into, for example, a guessing game. Different groups build different profiles of their idols, and after each group's brief presentation, the rest of the class can guess who the idol is. Or it can be a memory game where all groups have to build different profiles for the same famous person. In the end, the group with the most reliable information and most interesting presentation about the idol is the winner. Of course, a warm-up activity should only be slight and brief, and we should also make sure that the students have used appropriate language to a certain degree. Another example is the project of Unit 9 in the new English textbook for grade 7. The project asks students to describe a new festival of their own preference, mainly through answering 7 WH questions and using appropriate adverbial clauses. Meanwhile, the sections of vocabulary and grammar of the unit focuses on new words about events and festivals and the use of adverbial clauses with WH words. Therefore, the project can be combined in these two sections as drilling activity of language use. The presentation which properly uses the most new words and adverbial clauses should be taken as the example for the class. Besides foreign languages, the Vietnamese students have to learn a great amount of knowledge and complete learning assignments of many other subjects. The expectation of fulfilling a project either in class or at home can be too much and reduce the students' motivation. Therefore, if the teachers think that a particular project is beneficial for their students, they need to consider decreasing the number of practice exercises and at the same time turning the project into an integrated one which requires students to use in-class language knowledge and macro skills of listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Another challenge for project-based learning in Vietnam is the ineffective communication between teachers and their students, especially in terms of learning difficulties. It tends to be culturally inappropriate for the Vietnamese students to complain about their teachers' unclear instruction or request the teacher to change or reduce the demands of the learning tasks. Therefore, it is advisable for the teachers to initially make everything simple and clear in the first place. For example, we can provide the students with detailed language items that we expect them to use in advance. Reliable information resources should also be provided for them to do research on the project before the class session. Moreover, in order to make sure the project will be suitable for the classroom culture, we should set specific, detailed, and small objectives so that the students find the project achievable. Besides reducing the project requirements, we also need to welcome the students' own creative ideas and approaches. Of course, the teachers still have to play the role of morality mentor. As we discussed before, our current assessment methods seem to be inefficient when it comes to project-based learning. Without being officially assessed with project production, our students cannot find the motivation or rationale for doing it. We practically cannot interfere with the midterm or end-of-term exam results of the students. Therefore, the only way for us to officially acknowledge the students' accomplishment of high-quality projects is to reward them with scoring incentives, such as a high score or replacement of a low score of 15-minute tests. One thing to notice is that we need to announce the scoring and reward policies at the beginning of the term and be consistent with them. All the above challenges can be solved one way or another. However, in the Vietnamese context, it doesn't seem favorable or easy for us to create in-class intercultural environment for our students to increase their intercultural communication competence. So we can only do our best to expose our students to as much cultural and cross-cultural knowledge as possible. One way to do this is to turn a project into a field trip where the students can enjoy some alteration of learning activities, get themselves involved in cultural activities, and perhaps some interaction with foreigners and foreign cultures. A field trip with an informal setting can also be a great chance for both the teachers and the students to get to know each other better, thereby narrowing the power distance between them. It's also a chance for the teachers to involve in the same activities as the students so as to discover their learning preferences and abilities. Another way to create an environment for cultural awareness in class is to establish classroom cultural gallery, cultural corner, or cultural boxes which collect representative artifacts and anecdotes from different cultures. The collection can be carried out on a weekly or occasional basis. The students' projects will become both creative decoration of the classroom and regular reminder of the target cultural knowledge. Book exchange is another suggestion. There always are teachers and students who have read interesting books about other cultures, either in Vietnamese or English. The establishment of reading materials sharing activities on a regular basis will benefit both the teachers and the students. They should be conducted with brief presentations about the books, not only the act of swapping the collection. Finally, storytelling in a target language like English with scoring incentives can be conducted sometimes as a replacement for individual knowledge revision at the beginning of the class session. Today, there are a number of teenagers who have chances of traveling and going abroad with their parents. They surely have interesting intercultural experiences that they love to share with others. So, all in all, Similar to the Western-based cooperative learning approach, project-based learning, with its own advantages, still has to face several significant challenges when applied in the Vietnamese context. Even though we can suggest solutions to those problems, it is never easy in reality, nor can produce fruitful outcomes without the teacher's perseverance and regular self-training and practice in teaching. And this is also the end of this tutorial on culturally appropriate pedagogy. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.